Today, if you walk past the White House, you won't see the traditional symbol of American power. You'll see an abandoned construction site surrounded by fencing with idle cranes and a massive hole covered in mud. Where the historic East Wing once stood, there is now only silence and dust. Construction of Trump's much-talked-about Grand Ballroom has been officially halted by court order. The $400 million project, billed as a patriotic gift, has become a landmark of administrative chaos and political lack of control. What was supposed to be the pinnacle of his builder-president image is today a literal portrait of a government stuck in the mud and in the bureaucracy. The decision came straight from a federal court, and it wasn't just any decision. The judge, appointed back in the Reagan era, classified the project as statutory vandalism and accused the administration of lying about its funding. The government demolished a historic part of the White House without securing the money or the legal approvals for the new construction. The most serious part? The very excuse of national security used to justify the haste was dismantled in public, with secret documents revealing that the new hall would in fact be a security risk. A ballroom with glass walls over a bunker? Even the secret didn't buy that one. The so-called ballroom from hell went from a megalomaniacal project to an institutional embarrassment in less than 6 months. The donors Trump claimed were already committed simply vanished. Some are facing investigations, others cited market instability. But the truth is that the Trump name became too toxic even for the billionaires who once proudly displayed their contributions. No one wants to see their name carved into an unfinished monument, sued by historic preservation agencies, and threatened with demolition by the next administration. The hole in the White House became a symbol of a mandate that couldn't even fulfill its own promises. In this video, you will understand how everything reached this point. The collapse of the project, the devastating political impact, the legal errors that could turn into crimes, and the image that no marketer can erase. We're going to show the documents, explain what the judge determined, and why this episode might be the final nail in the coffin for a presidency that promised to build, but ended up digging. Literally. It all started at the beginning of the second term, when a newly inaugurated Trump decided that the East Wing of the White House was no longer worthy of receiving world leaders. In private meetings, he even classified the spaces as third world. And then came the idea for the Grand Ballroom, a 90,000 square foot mega hall with a 9-meter ceiling, a victory balcony, and finishes worthy of a European palace. A project estimated at $400 million. But according to him, totally funded by private donations. No cost to the taxpayers. The promise was big, but the plan to make it happen involved a historic price, demolishing part of the White House that had stood since World War II. The destruction of the East Wing meant more than losing rooms. It was erasing a living part of American history. The site housed the Presidential Family Theater, the First Lady's offices, and the official entry point for diplomatic visits. But all of that came down in a few weeks. The government claimed the construction would also house a new emergency operations center, replacing the old FDR-era bunker. With this, it triggered a legal loophole claiming urgency for national security. This move, though criticized by experts and preservation entities, was what allowed the demolition to begin, even without the money secured. Except Trump bet too high. He tore down the structure expecting private donors to fulfill promises that were never formalized. The White House believed that with the work already underway, it would be easy to pressure financiers and speed up the remaining approvals. But then came the financial collapse in Japan, the investigations in New York, and the diplomatic disaster in Davos. Suddenly, the same magnates who promised millions disappeared. One of the biggest, a casino owner in Las Vegas, publicly withdrew his support last weekend, citing financial risk. Without money, the project lost what sustained its only legal justification. The presiding judge didn't just stop the project, he exposed the legal fragility of the entire operation. Documents revealed that the security argument was unsustainable. The Secret Service, in a confidential report, warned that the project would increase the risk of attacks, compromising the foundations of the presidential residence. The Situation Room, which Trump said he wanted to rebuild, had already been renovated in 2024 with state-of-the-art technology. In other words, the excuse used to ignore preservation laws was a farce. And with that, what was a national project became legally a personal whim. With the ruling, the partial destruction of the White House became more than a scandal. It became a symbol. A president who built his fame saying, "I deliver ahead of schedule and under budget," now faces the opposite. The timeline is stalled. The budget has evaporated, and the only thing delivered was a hole in the ground and in his public image. The judge went even further. If the funds are not deposited in full within 30 days, the GSA will be forced to fill the crater with soil and restore what they can. Trump wanted to leave a legacy of greatness. For now, he has left mud, fencing, and silence. The work stoppage is not just an architectural failure. It has become a communication disaster, a political loss, and an institutional crisis on a national scale. Every day that the hole remains visible, it reminds the country and the world of a failed personal project, sustained by empty promises. Images of the abandoned site with immobile cranes and blue tarps fluttering in the wind are in every news report. International leaders are now received by a White House in permanent renovation, exposed and stripped of its character. Even reporters, when doing their live shots from the front of the building, bring the scandal into the background. Literally. Trump is not just surrounded by physical mud, but by symbolic mud. Internally, the damage is even greater. East Wing employees are displaced. The First Lady's staff works in makeshift rooms across the street in the Eisenhower Executive Office building. It's circulating behind the scenes that Melania, or whoever is occupying the role of First Lady, is furious with the progress of the work that was also supposed to be part of her legacy. What was meant to be a space for gala and diplomacy has turned into a symbol of neglect, improvisation, and isolation. And this isolation isn't just physical. Trump is starting to lose support even within his own party. Republican senators are outraged because they now have to publicly defend an indefensible project, an illegal crater in the center of the federal government. The legal pressure is also just beginning. The judge's decision sets important precedents. It reinforces that the president is not the owner of the White House, but merely a temporary manager. The destruction of federal property without a guarantee of replacement violates preservation laws and could even constitute a crime if false promises regarding financing are proven. The judge has already requested documents with the names of the donors and the terms of their commitments. If it is proven that the White House lied to the court, the case could escalate into criminal investigations. This would put aides and even cabinet members at risk of indictment, not for a political decision, but for documentary fraud. Meanwhile, on the workers' side, the project's financial collapse also went over poorly. The unions responsible for the work abandoned the site even before the court order. They demanded payment guarantees, and when they didn't receive them, they left. The symbolism is clear. The builder president lost the support of the builders. For working-class voters, this carries emotional weight. Images of operators climbing down from their machines and walking away from a presidential project say more than any speech. The project was meant to be a triumph of engineering and patriotism. It ended up becoming a living illustration of broken promises. And perhaps the hardest blow comes from public perception. The question starting to echo among undecided voter groups is simple. If he couldn't finish a ballroom, how is he going to rebuild the country? In times of economic crisis, expensive gas, and food insecurity, seeing the president prioritize a luxury construction funded by promises from vanished billionaires generates real indignation. The contrast between the ostentation of the idea and the reality of the whole is violent. It's the kind of image that sticks. That goes down in history, and that, depending on the next steps, could be remembered as the beginning of the definitive end of an era. It's ironic. Trump wanted to leave a symbol of power, a work that would impress heads of state, make magazine covers, and serve as final proof of his legacy as a great builder. What he left was a hole, literally, an open crater in the center of the White House, exposed, stalled, silent. And that silence is perhaps the most powerful image of it all. Because it's not just about concrete or fencing, it's about what this construction says about his presidency. Grandiose promises, rushed execution, blind trust, and in the end, abandonment. The ballroom from hell didn't fail because of a technical detail. It failed because it was built on vanity, not necessity. It was pushed through with flimsy excuses, sustained by money that never existed, and defended by arguments that fell with the first wind of crisis. And when the judge said enough, it wasn't just a legal decision, it was a political sentence. A clear reminder that the White House is not personal property, nor a stage for extravagance. It is a public, historic space that demands responsibility, not just ambition. Now the question remains, what will take its place? If the grass grows back, if the hole is filled, if the wall is rebuilt, what will remain of all this? Probably a stain on recent history, a landmark of how an obsession with image can end up buried by reality. Because in the end, Trump didn't build anything there, no hall, no legacy, just another story of excess, noise, and an abrupt end. If this video helped you understand the scale of this episode, the impact, the errors, and what's at stake, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments. Legacy isn't built with concrete. I want to know what you think of this story. The discussion is open, and it's only just beginning. Thanks for watching this far. See you in the next video.